In a case thought to be the first of its kind in the UK, it seems a whole family is being punished for one man's terror-related conviction. But whatever Munir Faruqi's offence is it fair that his whole family should have to pay for this? Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Absent Justice with me, Muazzam Beg. Father of three, Munir Faruqi ran a dawah stall for 10 years and was a prominent member of the Muslim community in Manchester. A few years ago, he was befriended by undercover MI5 officers who pretended to be Muslim reverts for more than a year. The officers managed to obtain a series of secretly recorded admissions from Faruqi, which ultimately led to his conviction on terror-related charges. Now the family faces eviction from its home due to the fact that Munir's admission was made in the basement of the property. So, does this amount to collective punishment? We'll be discussing this question and more in a few minutes. But first, here's a report by Huriya Al-Haddad.
This is the family home of Munir Faruqi, a man who was given 4 life sentences last year after being found guilty of trying to recruit 2 undercover police officers to fight in Afghanistan. He was convicted of terrorism offences, preparation for terrorist acts overseas, 3 counts of soliciting to murder, and dissemination of terrorist publications. Now police want to seize the family's home in Longsight, Manchester, in a case which some human rights campaigners says amounts to collective punishment of the whole family. The Faruqi family says it will fight the court order and have even set up a campaign to save their home. They say seizing the property would leave 3 generations of a family homeless, including an 11-month-old baby. This is internet footage of Munir Faruqi before he was arrested. The father of 3 ran a dawah stall on Longsight Market in Manchester and was considered a prominent community member. Greater Manchester police say that Munir Faruqi had been convicted of terrorism-related offences, and he had carried out most of them in the basement of the family home, which is why police have been trying to seize the property. Last year, the Faruqi family handed a 10,000 signature-strong petition to the Crown Prosecution Service over the plans. It now remains for a court to decide, after factoring in the family's interests, whether to allow the property to be seized. The case is expected to be heard in March this year.
Well, joining me in the studio to discuss some of these issues are the children of Munir Faruqi, Zulaikha and Haris Faruqi. We also have Reverend Gary Serra Dimini, a Christian minister and local campaigner for the Faruqi family. Welcome to you all. Let me come to you first, Haris. This case, it is in many senses the first of its kind in the UK, particularly when we hear about what's been commonly discussed as entrapment. Why do you think that they approached your father to begin with, these MI5 agents who pretended to be Muslims?
To be honest with you, it's a question that we ask ourselves because my father was doing dawah for approximately 12 years. Now, in this time span, the volunteers that helped him on the dawah stalls were approached by police on numerous occasions, and material was seized, investigated, and then given back to my father. There was no concrete, I should say, there was no discs or any pamphlets on the stalls that encouraged any violence of its sort. But
one of the things that I sort of think of is that clearly what we saw in other reports is that your father was responsible for the coming to Islam of many people. I think was it 1 a week over a period of 10 years. So he was a greatly influential character. There seems to be no doubt about this. I'm assuming that that's what brought them or led them to come and seek him out, as it were.
Possibly, yeah. It could be one of the reasons. It just seems like they were against the stalls being there. He had trouble with the police and the council, the Manchester City Council, threatening him to move over the years. So this could be one of the reasons.
But we know that he had a good working relationship with people from other communities, and we'll be talking to Reverend Dimini in a minute. But just so that we understand the background of the case, and it's clear, although it's been said in the report, these are all terrorism-related charges. There's never been any suggestion, has there, that there was any threat to anyone in this country in relation to anything that your father's supposed to have done?
Yes, I mean, I wouldn't say there was a threat in this country or overseas, because after the convictions had taken place, Tony Porter, the head of the Northwest Counter-Terrorism Unit, said himself that there was no endgame action plan or any of that sort found, but the only thing they could prove was an individual's ideology. So,
Reverend Dimini, thank you for joining us over the phone. You knew Munir quite well before and had interacted with him in terms of community discussions and relations. Can you tell us something about what you know of the man and why you're involved in the campaign?
Yeah, sure. Coincidentally, I first met Munir Faruqi. It seems to have been at the beginning of the undercover police operation, so that I grew to know Munir at the same time as he was engaging with these undercover policemen. I minister. I'm a Christian minister in the area where the Faruqi family live. This is a predominantly Muslim area, and whilst my ministry is to people who have no knowledge of God in their lives, so my ministry is not to Muslims, I felt I needed to understand Islam because I was living and working among people who loved Allah expressed through Islam. And I just stumbled across that dawah stall at Longsight Market one Saturday and introduced myself to Munir. I explained to him what I wanted to do. He helped me to integrate into the community. He invited me to community events. He taught me what he knew about Islam. He introduced me to a local sheikh, and he took me to Friday prayers so that I could see Islam at work and so that I could hear the preaching. We actually struck up a friendship, and at no time during that 12-month period did Munir ever talk to me about politics, about military jihad. We only ever talked about Allah, about the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, about Jesus. That was my agenda, that was his agenda.
Could you have ever envisaged that you'd be talking about the possible seizure of his home at a time when he himself is already paying a price for what he's convicted of, imprisonment? Have you ever heard of anything like this in the UK ever taking place before?
No, I haven't. You're right to say that this is unprecedented in English law. Most of the people I talk to, and incidentally, whilst I know the Faruqi family to have a large Muslim support network, I can also tell you that they have a large Christian support network as well. Most of the people I talk to about this case are Christians. They're from all walks of life. They are horrified to know that this action is being brought against this family. They find it morally reprehensible, and a lot of my time is spent convincing them that actually the law provides for this action because they don't believe that this could happen in England in the 21st century.
Absolutely. I mean, I was reading earlier on, that, not to make the comparison at all in any way that Britain is the same as Nazi Germany, but they had a law there called Sippenhaft, which allowed for anybody suspected of being against the government or having committed a crime for their family members to also be targeted, imprisoned, assets to be seized, and so forth. Zuleika, let me ask you, because you're going to be affected by this and are being affected by this, and the members of your family. What goes through your mind when you think that the home that you've been in for such a long time and has belonged to your family would be, and it's a private home, it's not a council home, will be taken away from you by the state?
I think it's really disgusting, just thinking of the concept of a family being left homeless deliberately, especially living here in Britain, and to think where, you know, so many people come here, seek refuge, and they're given houses. But for a family, not just one, but for 3 generations, to be left homeless.
There are women and there are young children in the house.
Yes, my own daughter is just 1 year of age. So it's just really disgusting to think that this can actually happen.
One thing that we've just heard from Reverend Dimini is that there is a great deal of support, not just from the Muslim community, but also from from non-Muslims and from Christian groups and so forth. Clearly, it's a very difficult time for you all. But what has it made you feel in terms of the gathering support that you're getting and hopefully will continue to get?
It's been really overwhelming, I must say, not just seeing so many Muslims stand for us, but non-Muslims and people of no faith as well, coming forward because they recognise that it's not just a Muslim issue, this is actually human rights, and to punish a whole family for what one person has allegedly committed and he is actually appealing, it's quite really outrageous.
It is. It's outrageous. It's disgusting. And when you think, of course, collective punishment, you think of Palestine. You think of somebody accused of being involved in something against the Israeli state, and then the house being bulldozed. In that case, in this case, it's the house being seized.
Exactly.
British law is about precedent, and if a precedent is set here in this case, surely, and not just in terrorism-related cases, this will open the floodgate to something the likes of Britain has never seen. Harris, where do you think this is going to go? Where do you think this is going to take us if this happens?
Well, I personally, I believe there's no limit to it. If once the precedent is set, then it's obviously up to the authorities to what extent they want to lead this to. So it's not a Muslim-only issue. Realistically, if anyone in future, if this goes through, then the next stage is if anyone, any member of a family is committed of a crime, potentially the whole family could face seizure of the property. So
not necessarily terrorism only.
Yeah, it's not necessarily.
It could be open to any other potential crime. Reverend Dominia, can I just ask you, have you had any discussions with the police, with the local councils, with people in authority about what's taking place? And if you have, what sort of responses have you had from them in relation to your campaigning and petition to save the family home?
I haven't personally. I'm speaking for the campaign, really, and I can tell you that the campaign has noticed that the authorities seem to make an assumption that this is a Muslim-only issue. 2 meetings held at the local police station where only imams were present. The campaign questions, well, why weren't Christian leaders there, Jewish leaders, Hindu leaders, community leaders of no faith? Why were the authorities only thinking that Muslims should be involved?
Do you think this would have been by design? Is it's a tactic, or it's just a completely innocent mistake?
I really don't. Whichever way it is, I think the authorities and the Muslim people as well need to realize that this is most certainly not a Muslim-only issue. Harris is right to say, and you're right to say, that if this action by the Crown Prosecution Service is successful, that will create a precedent in law that it's okay to punish innocent people to take the home of an innocent family simply because of something that someone else is supposed to have done, simply because they have at one time shared that home with someone who has been convicted of a crime. And that's not a Muslim-only issue. That can happen to anybody of any background, of any belief. This is most certainly a universal human rights issue. And it's the Crown Prosecution Service need to wake up to that fact, that this is not going to rest with Faruqi family. If this action goes ahead, this will become a national issue. We have 16,000 signatures on the petition at the moment. We're aiming for 100,000. We will get 100,000. We're getting that level of support as people become aware of the situation. We will get 100,000 signatures. The issue will be raised in Parliament. It's just a matter of when. It's just a matter of time. The Crown Prosecution Service needs to wise up to that.
Zulaikha, let me ask you, what do you think that the police are trying to seek here? They've already convicted your father. He's in prison. He's had his liberty removed. And that is what the state sought. What are they seeking now? Can you understand what would be behind this? Has anybody explained this to you at all?
Well, being in this situation myself and the daughter of Munir Faruqi, I would say that the only thing they're seeking is to, in a way, bully the family and to punish us in every way possible. And, you know, just using this law in effect in order to pressurize my father and to make things difficult for him, because obviously we are related to him. But I can firmly say that, you know, praise be to Allah, but that's not going to happen, even though you'll see tears, you'll see people upset, but it's not going to happen, because with more difficulty we just get more firm and strong.
Alhamdulillah, may Allah give you strength. Harris, you were initially arrested as well as part of this case, but you were released afterwards and all charges were dropped. What effect did it have on you? And of course, to go from one ordeal to the next ordeal, which you could have never imagined, what effect has this had on you as a person?
It's left me confused, to be honest, because I always thought that Great Britain was known for its laws, for its justice, for its own people. Now, to punish innocent members of a family, there's no words to explain the decency in this. Like I say, I totally agree with Zulaikha where the bullying was. I mean, I was involved in the trial myself. When I was arrested, I was physically abused.
What did they do to you?
Well, I'm a deep sleeper, and my family can witness that. And because they can't wake me up, they literally kicked me on the side of my head so hard that my ear was bleeding. Okay. So, yeah, I mean, as the case has gone on, I've realised what the British justice system is, and if this goes ahead, then the whole nation will wake up.
There's two components to this case I think that the public do need to know. First of all, one component is that the possession of books. We're in Britain, the land of Shakespeare and Wordsworth and habeas corpus and so forth, but essentially for the possession of a book, or two books and two CDs. Is that correct?
Yeah.
These were the evidences that were used as evidence against Munir Faruqi. I
wouldn't say not only these books. I mean, overall, the whole material that was stacked up in the Dawah stall, right, that was stacked up in the basement. A photograph of this was taken and presented to the jury. So it seemed like this whole area is filled with terrorist publications.
Right. But so we understand that most of that material that was filmed in that basement has been returned.
Yeah, I'd say about 80%. It's difficult to say if it's the whole thing because there was such a volume of it. The police did not count the pamphlets or anything.
So clearly even the police recognise that the overwhelming majority has been returned and is not terrorist material.
Yes, definitely.
It also, the other component of this case is something particularly disturbing, and that's the one of trust between communities and also within the Muslim community. Just explain this one to me a little bit, because I think our listeners and viewers should understand this.
Well, for your friend to have breakfast with you, lunch with you, dinner with you, to call you literally every day, invite you to lectures, invite you to the mosque.
Let's just get this clear. These are two men of a Caucasian or background who are pretending to be Muslims, yes, and have endeared themselves to your father in order that they can get close to him.
Yes, that's right. So, like I say, they've reverted to living in the community, deceiving everyone, giving an image that they are practicing Muslims. They've grown their beards, wearing Islamic dress, using the Islamic terminology, eating with us, literally spending every day of their life with us for the whole year, and not realizing the fact that every innocent conversation is literally taken out of context and used against you, and said that you are trying your utmost best to radicalize these old men. There's definitely a trust issue there. You know, you're just left at the end of this. Who do you trust?
And the other thing, the other fact about this is within the Muslim community itself. Surely this must have created some sort of rift or disdain or fear between reverts or converts to Islam and people who are traditionally Muslims.
Yes, I mean, whoever, in general, a person that's coming into Islam, for myself, and no disrespect to any Muslim, but I would, not just to a revert, but any individual, I would just keep my distance from them, simply because I have a trust issue.
Reverend Damini, let me ask you something. If something like this were to happen within the Christian community, in your church, if somebody pretended to be a Christian and became close to you and so forth, and later it turned out that he was spying for the government and so forth, what effects do you think it would have on your congregation and your community?
Well, the first thing that springs to mind is that this isn't only an offence against men, it's an offence against God. To pretend to commit your life to God, whether we call him God or Elohim or Allah, to pretend to commit your life to him and to pretend to pray shoulder to shoulder with other men and women of faith is a gross sin against God. The trust, the breach of trust and the sense of betrayal would be beyond description.
Zuleika, tell me something about the campaign and how far it's got to now. You have a website.
Mm-hmm.
What's the website?
It's www.savethefamilyhome.com.
Savethefamilyhome.com.
That's right.
And that's where people can go to learn more about the case and sign the petition, which you're trying to get 100,000 signatures for.
Yeah.
So how has that been going on so far? Is it just localised to Manchester, or has it become more nationwide?
Well, over the past couple weeks and months, we've just been concentrating on Manchester because, you know, the undercovers were in Manchester and the community in Manchester know my father very well. So we've been raising awareness and gathering more support within Manchester, but now it's actually become more national, and people from other cities have been contacting us and saying that they want to raise more awareness and become more involved. It's been really fruitful, and we've actually organised another 2 public meetings in Rochdale and Oldham, and the details again will be on the website. It's generally to raise awareness and to tell people that this can actually happen, and it is happening, and they have to stand up to speak against this injustice in order to show the authorities that what they are doing is wrong.
Speaking against injustice, that's the final word on this. Unfortunately, that's all we have time for this week. If you'd like to help more, please go to savethefamilyhome.com. I'd like to thank our guests, our production staff, and you at home for watching. Remember, Absent Justice is a fortnightly program, so I'll see you next week again, inshallah. Make sure to join us. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.